Hi, this is a little bit of history on the tarot. Reading about the history can take you down so many different rabbit holes, and I could spend, if I take myself off on a holiday, I could just read about the history. It fascinates me. So here's a little bit for you to ponder. So there's a book called The Devil's Picture Books, and it's a history of playing cards. It was written by Mrs. John King van Rensselaer in New York in 1890. And the earliest known specimens of the tarot cards are now to be found in the Cabinet d'Estampes, which is the Cabinet of Prints in Paris, and are supposed to have formed part of the pack which was painted for King Charles VII of France in 1393. And it says, to cheer and amuse him during an illness which made him a melancholy but not a dangerous lunatic. So Rensselaer also writes that the Devil's Books was the name bestowed upon playing cards by the Puritans and other pious souls who were probably in hopes that the name would alarm timid persons and so prevent their use. So originally the tarot was created as a means of entertainment and were only available to the wealthy, as the cost of creating the decks proved expensive and time-consuming. Considering that there was very little entertainment back in the 1300s, Tarocchi and Trappola, two card games, became popular forms of entertainment. The original deck only contained minor arcana and court cards, and the major arcana were introduced later on. The Knights Templar also have their roots deeply connected with the tarot, and their physical monuments are truly mystical places to visit. I was lucky enough to visit on my walk of the Santiago de Compostela, and the energy in those places is breathtaking. They used the images from the tarot as a means to hide arcane meaning of symbols and ceremony. From the book The Secret Teachings of All Ages by Manly P. Hall, which is this wonderful book, it's on the occult. The cards were brought home by returning warriors who imported many of the newly acquired customs and habits of the Orient, to their own countries. And he writes that this seems to be a well-established fact. And it doesn't contradict statements made by other writers who declared that the gypsies, who were about at that time and were wandering over Europe, brought cards with them. And they were using them and do use them to this present day for divining the future. And on a personal note, my grandmother was gifted a deck of cards by the gypsies who lived here in Port Melbourne, in Australia. And I absolutely love them. The deck, the box is a little bit damaged, but it's in handwriting, fortune-telling cards. And they have an astrology theme, but they also have meanings on the bottom. So this one says, a tide of prosperity in the 4th and 6th year. So some of them are really specific. I absolutely love them. So, yeah, in 1770, John Baptiste Alliette, his pseudonym name was Etelia. He was a cartomancer, and he was the first to create his own deck. So he used it for divination and not just as a playing deck anymore. He published the divine meanings for the 32 cards, incorporating astrology, the 4 elements and the meanings, and drawing heavily from Thoth, the god of wisdom, learning and magic. So, and Thoth represented as a man with a head, either of an ibis or a baboon. He was also the first to give order and sequence to the tarot, which is still used today. Etelia became the first professional tarot reader, and I got that little bit of information from dictionary.com, and you'll find a lot more in here as well. The Rider-Waite-Smith tarot deck was illustrated by Pamela Coleman Smith and created by Arthur Edward Waite in 1909, and this is the deck that I'll be referring to in these pages. This is one of my first decks, but yeah, not my first. So today there are thousands of decks on the market, and each one embodies their own unique mystery. You never know. You might become a collector and fill your shelves with divine artistry of tarot, or maybe you already have. Either way, whether you have one deck or many, create your own history with your decks and continue learning and discovering hidden meanings contained within the tarot. Keeping the legacy of tarot alive and in open view for us all to use is my mission. I would love to see everybody with a deck learning about themselves and thus, learning more about the tarot and the world. So, let's get started.